Good evening. Welcome to the world's safest room. This is the meeting of the Skokie Village Board for Monday, December 6, 2021. With Skokie and the entire state of Illinois now in Phase 5 of the Restore Illinois Plan and the lifting of restrictions on in-person gatherings, Skokie Village Board meetings are in person in the council chambers at Village Hall, 5127 Oakton Street. Village Board meetings begin at 8 p.m. and will continue to be broadcast live on the Village's YouTube channel, as well as on Skokie Vision cable television channels 17, Comcast, and 25, RCN. Meetings are also rebroadcast on the cable channels in the weeks following each meeting, and the videos are archived on the Village's YouTube channel. As of August 30th, 2021, all individuals in Illinois are required to wear masks, including indoors in village buildings. Public comments may still be submitted to public comments at Skokie, at publiccomments@skokie.org. Comments received prior to the meeting or during the meeting will be provided to the village board, but will not be read aloud. Public comments also can be mailed or hand-delivered to Village Hall, attention Village Manager's Office, or they may be placed in the exterior drop box on the west side of Village Hall. Each Village Board meeting agenda includes time for public comments, and individuals wishing to speak on an issue will be allocated 3 minutes to address the Village Board. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our Village Clerk, Pramod Shah, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
and
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all. The meeting will come to order, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Sutker,
Here.
Trustee Robinson,
Here.
Trustee Kuhn,
Here.
Trustee Johnson,
Here.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Here.
Trustee Klein,
Here.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Here, we have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Pure Slovin. Are there any comments or questions, anything anybody would like to have removed? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. As a point of clarification, there has been a great amount of interest in the village in a question before the Skokie Plan Commission, the issue of the building of a Carvana outlet. That matter is not before the village board. We've received quite a few inquiries, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understands. It is still before the Plan Commission. The chairman has requested, based upon additional research and information, that the Plan Commission hold one more hearing on Carvana. Please stay tuned. The chairman of the commission will announce a date in the very near future for that second hearing. After that, the matter will then come to the village board. So if there's anybody here this evening or within reach through our YouTube channel, Carvana still is before the Plan Commission. We now have a proclamation dealing with the Niles Township Food Pantry. I would like to read the proclamation, but also by way of introduction, there are, I know, two members of the board of the township, Peggy Tolleson and Mark Collins, I believe, are here, correct? And also Mike Isaacs, I think. If I don't seem to recognize people, I told this story a couple times, but the other day I was walking down Oakton and passed by a fella, and he nodded to me, and I politely nodded back, and we passed each other, and we were about 10 feet apart, and he turned around, and he goes, "George, you don't say hi anymore?" Somebody I've known for 30 years. We just simply didn't recognize each other, masked up. So, Mike, whereas the Niles Township Food Pantry initially started out in the basement of the Niles Township building at 5255 Lincoln in Skokie, with a shelf containing some canned goods, just in case someone was in need. It then grew to the back room of the township building with one full-time employee. Whereas in 2009, Niles Township reestablished the food pantry in their annex building, 8341 Lockwood, the former site of a daycare facility. And whereas in 2020, the food pantry served 3,000 separate households, about 9% of the total households in Niles Township, and had nearly 61,500 total individual interactions, as many families rely on the pantry on a regular basis, and even more so during these difficult times. In 2020, the pantry distributed nearly 1.4 million pounds of food. And whereas the demand for emergency food continues to grow in the wake of a global pandemic, and the demand to operate food banks, like the Niles Township Pantry, is more critical than ever. Whereas the pantry continues to provide meaningful volunteer service and in-pantry shopping to those in need, and has helped encourage installation of many food pantries across the township through the 2021 Coming Together program. And whereas the Niles Township Food Pantry Foundation is collecting monetary donations this year to purchase holiday gift cards so children from families in need can enjoy the upcoming holidays. And whereas the food pantry is run and supported by the Niles Township government, whereas food and other services provided to food pantry clients are paid for out of the Niles Township Food Pantry Foundation, a 501c3 charitable corporation. Now therefore I, George Van Dusen, Mayor of the Village of Skokie, do hereby proclaim this month of December 2021 as Niles Township Food Pantry Awareness Month in the Village of Skokie, and urge all residents to support the efforts of the Niles Township Food Pantry Foundation by making a monetary donation to the Food Pantry Holiday Gift Card Drive, and by donating, whenever possible, toiletry items and non-perishable food items. The goal of the effort this year is to raise a minimum of $75,000. The food pantry does exemplary work in our township and in the village of Skokie. So on behalf of a grateful citizenry, I'd like to present this to trustees Tolleson and Collins. So if perhaps you would share with us some remarks.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Mark.
And so I'm told to speak. It's interesting. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. And thank all of you who are here tonight. I see faces of people who have volunteered at the food pantry, who have given me money, who have given me food. I want to say thank you for a woman that I ran into, don't get emotional, a few months ago, who said, "You're the guy at the food pantry." I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Thank you, you saved my life." She had lost her job. Her husband lost her job. They didn't know what they were going to do. And I think somebody in her family had died from COVID. She was very emotional, but she kept saying, "Thank you, thank you." So I just want to say, thank you. Thank you. Thank all of you. You are this community. You make that food pantry work. And it works for 4 to 5 to upwards of 6,000 people every month. It works because you, little ones, all of you, you are heroes. We see these guys and gals in uniform, but it's also you who aren't in uniforms, who give that dollar, who give that can, who give that roll of toilet paper, who give from your heart and your time. So for that woman and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people, and for me, thank all of you.
Thank you. Nobody ever wants to follow Mark Collins. Keep up the good work. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce our police chief, Brian Baker, our fire chief, Jeff Hoflick. This evening, we are going to swear in promotion 3 of our heroes. And the village clerk, Pramod Shah, will do the honors. And so I would ask if the 2 chiefs would come up to the podium as our clerk does the honors.
Can we have Stephen Chapman for Deputy Fire Chief? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Stephen Jagman,
Having been appointed to
having been appointed to
the office of Deputy Fire Chief
the office of Deputy Fire Chief
in the village of Skokie,
in the village of Skokie,
in the county of Cook,
in the county of Cook,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
And
the
that I will-
duties of Deputy Fire Chief
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Deputy Fire Chief
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Okay.
Okay, and Deputy Chief, would you introduce your family and friends who are with you this evening?
Yes, my wife Teresa, my sons Brian and Daniel, my daughter-in-law Sarah, my mom Kathy, my sister Debbie, and my niece and nephew Matthew and Erica. And
Welcome.
somewhere out on the internet, my daughter Rebecca is one.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I,
State your name,
Timothy Norton,
having been appointed to
having been appointed to
the office of Fire Captain
the office of Fire Captain
in the village of Skokie,
in the village of Skokie,
in the county of Cook,
in the county of Cook,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Fire Captain
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Fire Captain
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Captain, would you introduce your family and
Yes,
friends?
thank you. My wonderful wife Christina's here. My three daughters, Emma, Claire, and Erin. My brother CJ. My mom Janie. My parents Tim and Lori Norton in the back. And my father-in-law Tom.
Welcome.
And now Denise Franklin. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I
I,
state your name,
Denise Franklin,
having been appointed to
having been appointed to
the office of Police Commander
the office of Police Commander
in the village of Skokie,
in the village of Skokie,
in the county of Cook,
in the county of Cook,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Police Commander
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Police Commander
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Guess what, Commander?
Yes, sir.
Would you introduce your family and friends?
Certainly. I have a pretty big family. It's my mother and father, Godfrey Franklin and Eva Franklin, my lovely wife Shannon, and my daughters Quinn, my niece Serenity, my sister Stephanie, my other sister Vivian, my sister Tanya, Lauren, my niece Audrey, my brother-in-law Michael, Auntie Nicole, my boyfriend Rob, and I'd like to thank Chief Baker, along with all the village officials and my colleagues, field training officers, and mentors along the way that helped guide and support me. So thank you so much.
We're immensely proud of all three of you, as we are with the entire police and fire departments. You know that you're fully accredited and recognized across the country for the monumental work that you do for us. But I would also be remiss if I didn't point out that the most important people are those who are our employers, that is, the residents of the village of Skokie. And every 3 years or so, we have an independent study done evaluating our service throughout the organization. And every year that we have done this study, and it's been close to over 20 years now, the police and fire department both rank in the 90th plus percentile favorably by our residents. 90+%. That's a tribute to the sacrifices that the three of you have made and your families in achieving your new ranks, but it's a tribute to the entire organization, all of the men and women who serve in our fire and police departments. Thank you for your service. These are tough times to be in first responder service. You make the village proud, and we humbly thank you for everything that you do. So I'd like, to take a break so that we can all congratulate our new captain, our new deputy chief, our new commander, and celebrate this joyous evening with them. Thank you very much. Do we know how to clear out a room? The next item on our agenda is report of our acting village manager, Nick Wyatt.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees, and good evening. Items A and items B on the manager's report are closely related and regard Westfield Old Orchard Shopping Center. As one of the most significant community economic drivers and an important regional attraction, it is critical for the village to help grow and enhance the viability of Old Orchard. Village staff and ownership from Westfield have worked closely together for a number of years to identify and develop a two-pronged approach that will enable a substantial investment of over $100 million back into the center. This evening, before the village board, are two resolutions that will need to be voted on separately. First is a resolution in support of a Class 7B real estate tax incentive at the former Lord & Taylor property. And the second is a resolution designating and scheduling a public hearing for a proposed business district. These initiatives will be presented tonight by Economic Development Manager Lynn Becker, Economic Development Specialist Leslie Murphy, and Serge Kalimsky and Rob Wyant from Westfield.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. Len Becker, Economic Development Manager. As contemplated for this evening, I just wanted to highlight very quickly our long-standing partnership with Westfield Old Orchard. And I'm sure everyone here can appreciate and respect the importance that the center has had in the village since 1956, 65 years. Not only is Old Orchard one of the largest sales tax generators, not only for the village, but for the county, it is also tremendously important for the underlying taxing jurisdictions, specifically District 68, as well as Niles Township High School District 219. Over the last 5 years, sales at Westfield Old Orchard have remained stagnant. As people have shifted their preferences to e-commerce, buying through the internet and visiting retailers less and less, that has impacted sales, especially last year where dramatic decline in sales due to the COVID pandemic. Retailers are constantly shifting, consolidating, changing their business models. They're creating all sorts of hybrids and experiences for the customer, not just going in and trying on a bunch of clothes, for example, but creating an experience with food, entertainment, and those types of uses. It's also important to note that over 85% of shoppers at Old Orchard reside outside the village of Skokie. So we have been working with Westfield for a number of years, but very diligently over the last 6 months on trying to create some opportunities for Westfield as a corporation and URW, the parent company, to invest into the center, minimizing future vacancies, creating a more curated mix of tenants, a better experience, modernization of the center, public spaces that are more inviting, enhancing local employment opportunities as the largest employment center in the village with over 3,200 employees, deploying and enhancing existing sustainability programs. And basically the two resolutions before you tonight, the first one being a Cook County Class 7B. The board is very familiar with these Cook County tax reclassifications. The only difference between a 6 and a 7 is for a commercial property, whereas 6 is typically for manufacturing. So with that, I'm going to invite Serge and Rob up here to talk a little bit about their Westfield's point of view, and then we'll be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Len. We'll get situated here, guys. So as Len mentioned, Old Orchard has been a pillar in the community since 1956, providing over 3,200.
Sorry, it was just
Oh, I'm sorry.
interrupt you.
There we go. Providing over 3,200 good-paying jobs, investing over $160 million over the past 15 years, and generating over $71 million a year in sales and property tax. We engage with local community groups like Niles Township Food Pantry to tackle food issues like food insecurity. We're involved with Chicago Cook Workforce Group to impact workforce development, and we've partnered with Evanston-based Fleetwood Jourdain to help donate backpacks full of supplies to children in need all over this area for the 2021 school year. In terms of sustainability, we're fully committed to our company-wide plan, Better Places 2030, focused on carbon reduction and sustainable practices. Just a few examples, we've spent over $2 million in the past couple of years on energy-efficient LED lighting retrofits, saving the property over 1.4 million kilowatt hours a year. We have a lofty waste diversion goal of 100% by 2030, and we're currently approaching 50% waste diversion at the property as we sit today. Other projects include solar paneling, water conservation, and energy-efficient building automation systems that reduce our carbon footprint. I'm going to hand it over to Rob to talk through some of our challenges.
Thank you, Serge. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, village trustees. I'd like to take this opportunity to briefly illustrate our challenge, which is also on the screen for you. Pre-COVID, Old Orchard's annual property tax expense was $17 million a year, or $23 per square foot. This compares to our flagship average, that's Westfield's largest collection of assets in the United States. This compares to a flagship average of $11 per square foot, or the International Council of Shopping Centers average of $6 per square foot. Old Orchard's tax expense is more than double our flagship average and nearly 3 times the ICSC's average. Said differently, nearly 40% of every dollar of revenue that we collect at Old Orchard goes to property taxes. Again, nearly 40% of every dollar of revenue that we collect goes to property taxes. This makes Old Orchard far and away the most expensive property to invest new capital in our portfolio. We recognize that there's no easy way to reduce property taxes, but the Business Improvement District goes a long way to offset the revenue tax expense imbalance and provides a compelling incentive to reinvest new capital in Old Orchard. I think we framed up the 2 agenda items today, the 7B incentive and the business district improvement. So goals and outcomes. I've been involved with Old Orchard for nearly 25 years, and in my opinion, the opportunity to transform Old Orchard to one of the best shopping centers in the United States has never been greater. It's an opportunity in front of us if we can seize the opportunity. For over 40 years, Old Orchard's trade area has been highly fragmented by other shopping malls, power centers, street and village retailers. But our location, our regional location, and the changing shopping center landscape within our trade area offers us the best opportunity in decades to consolidate the best retailers in the North Shore to Old Orchard. I think Macy's provided the best example of all for us. They closed Northbrook Court and they closed Water Tower Place over the last few years. And both Old Orchard and the village of Skokie have benefited mightily from that decision. We hope to consolidate more retailers to Old Orchard. Presently, there's a migration of urban dwellers relocating from the city of Chicago to the suburbs. We're also seeing a huge influx, an unprecedented number of Chicago residents who are choosing to shop at Old Orchard versus Michigan Avenue or some of the other street locations. Thus, we have a whole new generation, a whole new pool of shoppers that we are appealing to today, and we need to reposition our asset. We need to provide shopper amenities in the merchandise to attract and maintain this opportunity with these new shoppers. Therefore, our merchandising strategy must evolve to include more luxury, more on-trend, more designer brands. We have a very good dining category today, but it can get a lot stronger, both in the casual dining category and the QSR standpoint. One of the best ways for us to expand a trade area is with a great food and beverage lineup, and the recent announcement of Bar Sienna coming to Old Orchard is a prime example of that. Finally, over the last several years, we've seen many big box retailers achieve heightened levels of market share and sales growth. Redeveloping the Lord & Taylor box provides us a great platform to attract some of those retailers.
So, just to sum it all up, with the funding from the Business Improvement District, this will allow us to upgrade and enhance our shopper and amenities, improve the common area experience, and really fill, like Rob said, fill Old Orchard with the absolute best retail offering in the Chicago region, which will allow us to effectively double our sales generated on the site to $1 billion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. If there's any questions, we are at your service to respond.
I'd like to maybe just take a moment and put this into a little bit of historical perspective. Some of you, although I'm not too sure very many of you would recall the last time we redeveloped Old Orchard was the early, middle 1990s. And at that time, the nation was emerging from an economic recession, and it had hit Old Orchard Mall particularly. The southern end, where there presently is Nordstrom, was a boarded-up former Ward's department store. I won't ask anybody here if they remember Ward's department stores. I'm not sure, Rob, if you do. I think maybe you and I, and I'm not sure, Michael, Edie Sue. I won't ask anybody else. But we sought out funding to redevelop Old Orchard. It had been iconic. It was originally developed by Phil Klutznick. I don't think very many people here remember Phil Klutznick, but he went on to become Secretary of Commerce under President Carter. At any rate, we weren't able to find funding anywhere, offshore, insurance companies, traditional funding through banks. However, somebody local, suburbanite, Sam Zell, that name I think many of you do know, decided he wanted to invest in the redevelopment of Old Orchard and was going to purchase it from JMB Realty. However, Zell came to the village and asked for us to share in the investment, which we did. We invested $15 million into the redevelopment of the shopping center. We built and created the parking lot at Nordstrom. We put in amenities surrounding the shopping center, infrastructure to the tune of approximately $15 million. Zell invested $150 million. I'm not a mathematician, but I think if somebody says, I'll give you 150 million if you give me 15, I'll take that deal. It was one of the best deals we ever made. That shopping center, as Lynn and Serge and Rob just described, has become a pillar of the community. It's been a backbone for School District 68, for Oakton Community College, District 535, and of course, District 219. In addition to the sales tax that it has generated, I think today we are at another watershed. We have an opportunity today, with passage of these two items, to reestablish Westfield Old Orchard as the premier shopping destination. We're lucky. Through the foresight of previous mayors and boards, we also have Village Crossing on the south end, a big box, and on the north end, we have the iconic Westfield Old Orchard. So I think both of these passage of both of these will help us a long way toward reestablishing Old Orchard Shopping Center. Are there any comments or questions from members of the board? Trustee Kuhn.
I'm just trying to understand what the timeline is in terms of when we would be able to see a return on the increased sales revenue, in terms of what the expectation is, in terms of timeline of between the reduction in tax and expectation for the potential sales revenue, and also in that time period, the impact it would have on residents, given that it is a difficult time right now as well. Are there those things that need to be taken into consideration?
Sure.
Trustee Kuhn, statutorily, the 7B, which is a tax incentive, I'll let Serge and Rob speak to the timeline for the reinvestment in the Lord and Taylor box. As far as the business development district, the resolution before you tonight is setting a public hearing for January 18th. That's the first step, and this is a state mandated process. There are over 200 business districts throughout Illinois. So the plan would be, if the board were to consider that as ordinance, that would take effect July 1 of 2022, and that's predicated on the state's timeframe with the Department of Revenue. And those reimbursements would be made through a redevelopment agreement that would be formalized further down the road a little bit once the public hearing takes place.
So I think as it relates to your question on the Lord and Taylor box, if I'm following your question clearly, I think once the 7B process is finalized and once we lock down the deals, of course, you could expect a timeline of 12 to 16 months. That's a very rough timeline, but we would expect to see, we would hope to see someone open in the calendar year 2023. There's some variables in there, right? But I think just for a guidepost tonight, that would probably be a reasonable expectation sometime in 23.
Trustee Johnson.
Well, thank you all for being here. I have a question about how we're defining blight. One of the requirements for a business district is defining the area in question as a blighted area. So I'm kind of just curious by what measure we are using this definition.
Trustee Johnson, Mike Eichhoff from Grant Thornton is here, and he can address that question.
So, hello everybody, my name is Mike Eichhoff. I'm Grant Thornton advising URW on this project. So, great question about blight. The Illinois compiled statutes define blight a little bit differently than most of us would think about blight. Where we're focused on for the center, is kind of focusing on the lack of development and growth at the center, which is one of the criteria for blight. As we had mentioned, there's been flat sales tax or sales generation over the past 5 years. There's been declining property values as well. It's actually shrinking where the village of Skokie has grown. We're also looking at, have identified areas of deterioration throughout the center, specifically around some of the boxes which you can see from the road. We've also evaluated some of the surface lots and parking. You'll see some deterioration, as well as, you know, when we go back to lack of growth of investment. There hasn't been a major investment, as the mayor had mentioned, since the early 90s. There's been some cosmetic improvements at the center. But as we have all talked about today, due to the property tax burden, it's hard to invest in Old Orchard, so it's not growing. So that's how we're evaluating simply the blight.
And I just wanted to clarify one other thing. I think there was a question on return. I think the funding from the Business Improvement District is funded through the sales tax generation from the site itself. So just wanted to clarify that.
Trustee Sucker.
I just wanted to repeat what I saw up there, that more than 85% of the people doing business at Old Orchard are outside residents of Skokie.
Yes, that's correct. The demographics that we're seeing, we're seeing a lot of even more shoppers coming out of the city of Chicago and the surrounding regions to really spend their hard-earned money and time in Skokie.
And I have one more question for, for Westfield, is this one of the only outdoor malls that they have?
It's funny because it is in this climate. I think in Los Angeles we have many, and I think prior to COVID, you know, if you ask any of our executives, they might be like, why the hell would you build an outdoor shopping center in the middle of the Midwest, you know? But after COVID and the current environment, with just, you know, how people are these days, it just, you know, it lends itself really well to kind of where we're at today and making people feel safe in an open air environment.
Yeah, I should have said the caveat in this region. Thank you.
I want to make just one concluding comment, and that's a word of thanks to Westfield. When we were hit particularly with COVID and we were talking about what are we going to do early on, one of my most difficult conversations was with Serge. He's got a mask on this evening. The hair is new. This is the first time I've seen it. I wouldn't have recognized him, mask or no mask. But Westfield could not have been more cooperative, both in enforcing the mask mandate, as well as when we had to lock down. It was a very difficult decision for all of us. The village, Westfield, they could not have been more cooperative. And whenever Serge and I did talk, the first thing he always said was, it's important in the long run that all of us think of the customers, that we want people to know they're safe when they go to Old Orchard or anywhere in the village of Skokie. So I wanted to thank you. It was a very difficult time for you, as it was for all of us. Hopefully we're on the other side, or at least approaching it. So first is a resolution of support for a Cook County Class 7B real estate tax incentive at the former Lord and Taylor parcel at Westfield Old Orchard. A motion, I'm sorry.
Sorry, for Mayor, I just want to
That's
make a point of correction on the resolution of support for the Class 7B real estate incentive. On page 2, line 10, the date says 2017, and it should say 2018. and we'll correct this on the final resolution.
Okay. Thank you. A motion is in order. Trustee Sucker with her hand way up, seconded by Trustee Johnson. Are there any comments or questions specifically on this resolution? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Secondly, designation of and scheduling of public hearing for proposed Old Orchard Center Business District. Motion is in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Robinson. Excuse me. Any comments or questions on this particular scheduling of the public hearing? If not, call the motion, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
So I'm actually going to vote nay on this one. I've not been convinced that that this designation really meets the standard of a blighted area. The Business District Development and Redevelopment Law that's been addressed in the memo talks about how a blighted area constitutes an economic and social liability to the community. I think in the excellent presentation tonight and the excellent memo that was prepared for us, I think there's such clear evidence that Old Orchard is a really economic asset to the community, not an economic liability. So I'm questioning this designation as a blighted area. So for me, for the second measure, I'm going to vote no.
you're voting no or abstain?
Nay.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
Because of things stated by Old Orchard, I do see it as a blighted area, so I vote aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you. Look forward to continuing to work with you.
Items C and D were approved under tonight's consent agenda, and that completes my report.
And everybody, congratulations, Nick, good job.
Thank you, sir.
Nick's, I believe, your first time. Congratulations, good job. Next item is a report of our Corporation Council. Michael Lorge.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Items A, B, C, and D were ordinances which were on the consent agenda at the beginning of this evening's meeting and were adopted at that time. Item E is an ordinance which is on my report for first reading tonight and will be on the December 20th, 2021 agenda for second reading and adoption, hopefully at that time. This ordinance is a routine housekeeping matter. It will terminate various special service areas, SSAs as they're referred to, that have expired at this time. These SSAs have been established by ordinances and thus procedurally, when the term is expired, need to be terminated by an ordinance as well as sent to Cook County. The SSAs to be terminated are those referred to as SSAs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. All work regarding these municipal improvements funded by the SSAs has been completed. The term of each SSA, which was not to exceed 10 years, has expired as of the date of this ordinance. All expenses and costs relative to all of the SSAs have been paid in full, and there are no outstanding bonds in relationship to these SSAs. Any excess funds in any of the Village of Skokie's accounts that may relate to these SSAs remaining after any applicable rebates to property owners as determined by Cook County will then be transferred to the Village General Corporate Fund. Mayor, this will be back on the agenda, as I said, for December 20th, 2021 action. And that would conclude my report unless there are any questions.
Any questions on the Corporation Council's report? If not, next item on the agenda is our Community Development Block Grant Program. Carrie Haberstich.
All right, good evening. I am here tonight to present a request for funding to further support shelter for those residents of Skokie who have been negatively impacted by the the coronavirus, and there we go. So I do want to take a step back, since I know there are new trustees here, that I want to just take a moment to do a brief overview of our general entitlement program, then also the CARES Act program, and then go through goals, objectives, funding, and just general next steps. So the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Program is funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And it's an annual entitlement that comes to the village. It's for communities that have at least a 50,000 population. As of 2020, we're at 67,000 plus. And so we receive funds directly from the federal government. The focus of the program is primarily like construction and rehabilitation. The village maximizes the administration cap for like village staff to help assist running the program, and the services cap, that's the maximum we can spend, 20% on administration and 15% on services. So maxing those out, we have 65% that we put towards construction and rehabilitation. And all the funds are intended to help the needs of low-income Skokie residents. The CARES Act program is built upon the CDBG program with some adjustments. So it's any funds from this program is to prevent, prepare for, or respond to the COVID-19, any outcome from that. As an example, they did lift one of the requirements of the CDBG program, that 15% 15% public services. They actually removed that percentage cap, so we could technically spend 100% on services with these funds. We'll probably spend more than 95% of these funds on services once the funds are completely expended. So we have 3 groups of goals and objectives, and all of them were updated to incorporate the COVID-19 items for both our 5-year consolidated plan and our 1-year action plan. The allocation, if you recall, way back in 2020, there were 3 tranches for the CARES Act funding. Tranche 1 was March of 2020, and the village was allocated over $360,000. Tranche 2 did not go to any community development block grant funding, so that's not applicable for us. Tranche 3 was from September of 2020, so the village was, I guess, awarded over $440,000 for a grand total of over $800,000. The estimated budget between those 2 tranches were $220,000 for shelter-related costs, rent, mortgage assistance, and utility assistance, $220,000 for small business assistance, so we've spent those 2 sets of funds. So we've spent $440,000 to date. Other services and including like group homes, food, and other activities, we're budgeting, we budgeted over $350,000. And tonight we're requesting $100,000 of that be provided to further support shelter expenses. And the administration could be for staff, or maybe a portion of it might go back into services. We did build flexible funding in our action plan and request for funding. So, as the other funding requests come before you, there may be some plus or minus there, but that's the general budget as of now. And so, as mentioned before, we've already spent $220,000 on shelter-related expenses, and Connections for the Homeless is the organization that the village partnered with to distribute these funds. They are kind of the banker, so to speak, of kind of like the North Shore. And they have some of the resources that the village did not have to efficiently run this program. So that's where we partnered with them. And so they're requesting at this time another $100,000 towards shelter expenses. They've already spent the 220. There are other programs out there, but our funds can be applied towards mortgage assistance, which most of the other programs out there, either at the state or county level, have been mostly for rental. So that would help those with mortgage needs. Just a side note in related to our program, the maximum number of months that the village can support rent, mortgage, or utility assistance is 6 months. There is a state program that the application period just started today, and it will close in early January. And that program will support up to 15 months of past rent and 3 months of future rent. So if someone is really in dire straits, they probably would need to try and receive support from the state. But this is another option. We have helped utilities and mortgage with our funding as well. So for tonight, just wanted to request approval of the $100,000, which would be given to Connections for the Homeless to further support rental, mortgage, and utility assistance. Per the presentation, we will have another $250,000 plus that will come back for you just for a general update on funding distribution at a later meeting. Are there any questions?
Any comments or questions? So the motion would be to approve $100,000 of CDBG-CV/CV3 funds to be directed to Connections for the Homeless.
Correct.
Is there a motion? Trustee Sutker?
I'm not gonna repeat the motion.
Seconded by Trustee Kuhn. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Absolutely, yes.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Yes.
Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
Thank you.
And this is the first time you've been before us since 2020?
March of 2020.
Wow.
We've done Zoom, but this is the first time I've stood before you in
Welcome.
person. Yeah, thank
Great-
you.
Great to see you.
Long time waiting.
Is there anybody in the vast audience who wishes to address the village board? If not, Trustee Sutker.
I move we adjourn.
We're adjourned for the